Saturday, February 28th. In the middle of Ramadan, an act of terror by the United States and the Zionist regime led to the martyrdom of Imam Khamenei, while he, unlike some kings and leaders who die fleeing or are brought down in humiliation, was standing in the field, carrying out his duty, not in a bunker, not far from the scene. This runs against the image Western media had long promoted. He is hiding in a shelter.
Widely circulated reports that Khamenei has been operating from a highly fortified and possibly subterranean location.
But that was not their first distortion. For years, Western outlets tried to present a warped portrait of him. So the question remains, who was he really? Until the final breath. Imam Khamenei was a multi-dimensional figure. In politics, he was a seasoned statesman who continued the path of the architect of the Islamic Revolution, Imam Khamenei, and laid down a model of independence in the face of external pressure and threats, a model that was able to keep the country from surrendering to foreign powers and to steer the ship of Iran through one storm after another. But that is not the whole story. Alongside politics, he was an educated, spiritual, and wise leader, someone who, in governance, offered the world a different framework instead of following east or west. As a Shiite scholar and religious authority, he was a voice of expertise across many fields, with a vast collection of more than 120 volumes compiled from his lectures and discussions. From Palestine to Persian literature, from the political conduct of the Ahlul Bayt to Islamic teachings. And alongside this scholarly side, he also had an artistic sensibility. He cared about poetry and composed more than 6 ghazals. Yet, across all these dimensions, one defining trait stands out: steadfastness against oppression and domination. This steadfastness was not a passing slogan. It formed the backbone of an entire political and moral path. It meant rejecting coercion, refusing humiliation, and defending dignity even at a great cost. The same principle ran through his response to foreign pressure and through his unwavering support for Palestine. He treated Palestine not as a distant regional conflict, but as a defining moral question of the age, a cause that revealed where individuals, governments, and nations truly stood. It became a yardstick, a measure of whether one stood with the oppressed or oppression, whether one chose justice or silence.
ما معتقدیم ظلم بزرگی در منطقه دارد انجام میگیرد به وسیله وجود رژیم صهیونیستی. این ظلم باید قطع بشود. هر کسی در این جهاد بزرگ، جهاد انسانی، جهاد اسلامی، جهاد وجدانی وارد بشود، ما طرفدار او هستیم، از او حمایت میکنیم، به او کمک میکنیم.
For that reason, Imam Khamenei's support for Palestine was not merely as a political stance, but a sign of standing on the right side of history. But to understand this spirit, we have to return to the beginning. Syed Ali Hosseini Khamenei, son of the late Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin Haj Syed Jawad Hosseini Khamenei, a scholar and jurist of his time, was born on April 19, 1939, in the holy city of Mashhad. He was the family's second son. Syed Jawad Khamenei's life, like that of many clerics and teachers of the religious sciences, was marked by simplicity, and that simplicity, from the very beginning, acquainted him with hardship, shaping in him a spirit that was hard-working and resilient. From early childhood, after completing primary school, he entered the world of the seminary, a path shaped from the start by discipline, study, and intellectual rigor. As he moved into youth, he found himself in the middle of a struggle that would transform Iran's political order and reshape the region's equations. The young cleric became part of the active core of resistance against the Pahlavi regime. He came to know pursuit and pressure firsthand, and he belonged to a network that carried the message of revolution forward. At a time when activists were constantly pursued by SAVAK, Iran's pre-revolutionary secret police, and carrying the movement's message always came at a cost. His tirelessness was evident from the very start of the Islamic movement led by Imam Khamenei in 1962 to 1963. He was among the first to step into the arena, and over 15 years of uninterrupted struggle, he was arrested 6 times. The last time in January 1975, he was transferred to SAVAK's Interrogation and Torture Center, the Joint Anti-Sabotage Committee prison in Tehran, where, by his own account, he endured the harshest days of his captivity.
2 متر و 40 در 1 متر و 60. چند وقت اینجا بودید؟ من 8 ماه اینجا. فقط یه چراغ اینجا داشت. اینجا یه چراغ پشت این همین چراغ. پشت این میله ها. تنها روشنی این سلول از این چراغ بود. اینجا پشت این سلول یک درختی بود که بهار که شد گنجشکا می اومدن اینجا و سرصدا می‌کردند و یک وسیله تفریح خیلی خوبی برای ما شده بود وجود این گنجشک‌ها و اینها.
Yet, even in the hardest moments, surrender had no place. To break his morale, they shaved his beard in prison. But his response shattered the intended humiliation, with a smile and a line that became remembered. Praise be to God. It had been a long time since I'd seen my chin. Now I have. After prison came exile, years away from home, but never away from the struggle. Even in exile, he did not lose sight of one essential principle: resisting colonialism and global arrogance through Muslim unity. It was there that Ayatollah Khamenei, with a deep understanding of the bond between Shia and Sunni Muslims, laid the foundation for Unity Week, a week in which Muslims, regardless of sectarian differences, come together to celebrate the birth of the Prophet of Islam. This initiative was not just a date on the calendar, it carried a clear message for the Islamic world that the path to the strength and dignity of the Muslim Ummah lies in solidarity and brotherhood. After the victory of the Islamic Revolution, he was appointed Friday prayer leader of Tehran, a platform that was not merely for speeches, but for social organization and for generating momentum among the people. Even in those early years, his charismatic leadership was evident, and his ability to mobilize the public, now from the pulpit, marked a new stage of influence over hearts and minds.
اگرچه دشمن ما یک دشمن ناجوانمرد و خبیثه، اما این یه چیزی نیستش که احتیاج به استدلال داشته باشه. برای او وقتی که در میدان جنگ نمیتوانه مقاومت کنه، وقتی تو دهنی در میدان جنگ میخوره، برای او شهر و روستا و بیمارستان و محل نماز جمعه و اجتماع انبوه مردم غیر نظامی تفاوتی نمیکنه. هر جا رو که از دستش بیاد میزنه.
With the start of Saddam's Ba'athist regime's invasion of Iran in 1980, he went to war. In this period, Ayatollah Khamenei, as a young cleric, was experiencing the role of a field commander, an involvement tied to cooperation with figures such as Mustafa Chamran and the formation of mechanisms for irregular warfare.
پیغام داده است و سخن پراکنده است که چرا اونها که میگویند خودشون به میدان نمی آیند و شنیدم اسم مرا آورده است. ما میدان آمدنمون مانند میدان آمدن خائن و کافری چون صدام نیست. ما به سوی میدان جنگ پرواز میکنیم. اون روزی که امام اشاره کند و اجازه دهد من اول کسی خواهم بود که به میدان خواهم رفت.
As the representative of Imam Khamenei, he attended war room sessions and played a role in coordination, logistics, and support. That experience, presence on the front lines, and direct familiarity with the battlefield shaped a character who understood security up close and later carried practical backing for guiding the military and security structure of the Islamic Republic. Then came the 1981 assassination attempt, an attack that left him with life-threatening injuries, but only deepened his resolve.
آقای محترم که حالا با زحمت تشریف آوردن و من خیلی خوشحال شدم از اینکه آقای خامنه‌ای سلام الله آمدند و حاضرن. ایشون آخه چه کرده بود؟ خب بگید آخه یه کار خلافی چی کرده بود ایشون که می‌خواستید ایشون را بکشید و موفق نشدید بحمدالله.
He returned to the path of struggle with even greater determination and went on to carry that same field-tested understanding into 8 years of presidency during the imposed war, pursuing an independent foreign policy free from reliance on East or West, while remaining engaged in the war effort and advancing economic policies in support of the underprivileged. Following the passing of Imam Khamenei, Ayatollah Khamenei was elected as the leader of the Islamic Revolution. After the war and throughout the years of his leadership, this same spirit of steadfastness continued. He understood clearly that if Iran was to resist submission under the pressure of foreign powers, whether through war, military threats, or economic sanctions, it had to grow stronger. At a time when Iran was heavily damaged after the 8-year Iran-Iraq war, and over 37 years of Imam Khamenei's leadership, Iran became an influential regional power with an emphasis on reconstruction, expanding capabilities, and solidifying independent decision-making.
ذات استکباری آمریکا به جز تسلیم چیز دیگه ای را قبول نمی‌کنه. این همه بدونن علاج خیلی از مشکلات قوی شدنه. کشور رو باید قوی کرد.
In a region saturated with threats, where the United States has been fueling proxy wars, Imam Khamenei laid the foundation for a multi-layered security order. A framework designed to strengthen deterrence and reduce vulnerability, while also serving as the basis of the Islamic Republic's support umbrella for the oppressed nations across the region. The result was a defense and missile capability rooted in indigenous capacity. Under his leadership, Iran before the revolution, weak and dependent, ruled by men whose decisions did not move forward without Western approval, a country so vulnerable it could be occupied from north and south with ease, was reborn into an independent state. A nation that today stands under the harshest pressures and the most complex threats and does not step back. At the same time, in the economy, Iran, wounded after the Iran-Iraq war, was steered towards industrialization through a model of independent development, neither under the shadow of the East nor in the orbit of the West, so that even under the weight of sanctions, it could meet its essential needs. And in politics, along the path of Imam Khamenei, he strengthened the model of religious democracy, a sapling planted by the people's vote, growing through reliance on that same public will into a sturdy tree, a model whose pillar is the people, not an individual, and for that reason, it will remain standing even after him. The root of Imam Khamenei's steadfastness was not merely a calculation of power. Contrary to the logic of the law of the jungle that says the weak must submit or be eliminated, he grounded it in faith in God and in the divine promise. The belief that if a society stands for truth and accepts the cost, victory is not merely a possibility, it's a certain promise. This outlook is what explains the link between politics, spirituality, and resistance. And finally, on the morning of February 28, 2026, after a lifetime of steadfastness, he was immortalized through martyrdom, and another Ashura was etched into memory. Standing for truth and refusing humiliation were principles he never set aside. And his support for Palestine as one expression of humanity's liberation from oppression belonged to that same path. And though his body departed from the Ummah, his name endures in history as a steadfast leader, anchored in his principles. A leader who ruled hearts, who never bowed to coercion, and who carried Iran towards dignity and strength.
امام حسین علیه السلام فرمود مثلی لا یبایع یزید، کسی مثل من با کسی مثل یزید بیعت نمیکنه. ملت ایران در واقع میگن مثل ما، ملتی با این فرهنگ، با این سابقه، با این معارف عالی به سردمدارانی مثل افراد فاسدی که امروز بر سر کارند در آمریکا بیعت نخواهد کرد.
And in the path of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, a path of sacrifice, dignity, and refusal to bow to oppression, Imam Khamenei too was martyred, a martyrdom that becomes a model of steadfastness. His steadfastness brought the sapling of the Islamic Revolution planted by Imam Khamenei to fruition and gave independence a living meaning for Iran, and showed that the nation of Imam Hussein will never forsake the Palestinian people. Martyrdom is not the end, it's the beginning, the birth of a star whose light crosses the borders of time and place. And now that light among the Islamic Ummah and among the free people of the world has begun to shine for resistance against humiliation, for standing against bullying and coercion.